Show me your ID. The words cracked through the humid Atlanta night like a whip. Nia Caldwell froze, her hands instinctively rising into the air. The blinding red and blue strobes of the patrol car painted her caramel-brown skin in frantic flashes as the officer's voice grew sharper. I said, show me your ID now. The cop's hand rested firmly on his gun, his thumb twitching nervously near the holster strap. His pale eyes narrowed, sizing her up as though she were prey. Nia swallowed hard. She had heard countless stories like this: young black women stopped for driving suspiciously, for walking in the wrong neighborhood, for existing while black. But nothing prepared her for having a gun pointed at her chest on a quiet Thursday evening. Her heartbeat drummed like war. She tried to steady her breath. Officer, what's wrong? Why am I being stopped? Don't question me, his voice rose, venom lacing every syllable. Step out of the car, keep your hands where I can see them. Nia hesitated. She had been raised to respect authority but also to question abuse of power. Her father had drilled that into her from the time she was a child. But her father wasn't just anyone, he was the sitting governor of Georgia, Malcolm Caldwell, a man who had dedicated his career to criminal justice reform and equality. And right now, his daughter stood on the edge of becoming the very headline he fought against. Nia stepped slowly out of the sleek black SUV, her hands trembling in the air. The officer, a stocky man in his late 30s with a buzz cut and an arrogance that seemed to sit heavy on his shoulders, yanked his weapon fully from its holster. The metallic click of the safety echoed in the still night. Her breath caught. For the first time in her 24 years, she wondered if she'd see the sunrise again. Face the car, the officer barked. Nia obeyed, pressing her palms against the cool glass of her window. You got drugs, weapons, stolen property. Her voice cracked. No, sir, I was just coming from work. I'm heading home. He scoffed, circling her like a predator. Sure you are, you people always got a story. Those words, you people, sliced deeper than the pistol aimed at her back. As Nia's chest tightened with panic, her phone buzzed inside the purse slung over her shoulder. It was her mother, likely checking if she'd arrived home safely. But Nia couldn't reach for it, couldn't move an inch without risking the officer's itchy trigger finger. The cop yanked open her back door, rummaging through her belongings without permission. He pulled out her tote bag, spilling papers across the asphalt. Nia winced. Her official ID badge from the governor's office glimmered under the streetlight before sliding beneath the car. The officer didn't notice. Instead, he muttered, suspicious vehicle, tinted windows, black driver in a high-income area. Fits the description. What description? Nia demanded, her voice breaking from fear and fury. He smirked, the kind that ends up in cuffs. Nia's mind raced. Should she reveal who she was? If she said, I'm the governor's daughter, would it matter? Or would it make him angrier? Her father always warned her, don't ever expect privilege to shield you. Your skin will always be the first thing they see. Her pulse thundered. The officer finally noticed her trembling purse. What's in there? He barked, yanking it from her shoulder. Just my wallet and phone, sir, she stammered. He ripped it open, tossing makeup and receipts onto the pavement until he found the leather wallet. Flipping it open, he froze. Nia's stay-tissued identification stared back at him. Full name, Nia Caldwell. Address, Governor's Mansion, Atlanta. The officer blinked, his grip on the gun wavered. For a long, tense moment, silence thickened the air, then he sneered. This some kind of joke, fake ID. No, it's real, that's me. My father is Governor Malcolm Caldwell. He barked out a laugh, though it sounded hollow. Yeah, right, and I'm the President of the United States. I'm telling you the truth. Her desperation rang raw in the empty street. Just then, headlights appeared at the end of the block. Another car slowed, curious about the flashing lights. The officer cursed under his breath, dragging Nia by the arm to the front of his patrol car. Sit down, don't move. Pain shot through her wrist as he shoved her onto the hood. She gasped, tears burning her eyes. Her thoughts spiraled not just about herself but about her father, her mother, her younger brother. What would it do to them if she became another statistic, another name mourned on the evening news? No, she wouldn't let it happen. The approaching car pulled closer. To Nia's shock, it wasn't a random passerby. It was an unmarked black SUV, one she recognized instantly. Her father's security detail. The vehicle screeched to a halt, doors flying open. Two plainclothes officers emerged, badges flashing, guns holstered but hands ready. "Step away from her," one commanded. The cop stiffened. "Back off, this is my stop." The taller security agent's voice thundered like judgment itself. "That's the governor's daughter you've got your gun on. Are you insane?" The color drained from the officer's face. Nia's chest heaved as the realization settled on him. The arrogance that had carried his every word collapsed, replaced by a pale, sweaty fear. I didn't know," he stuttered. "You didn't care," the agent roared. He positioned himself between Nia and the officer, shielding her with his broad frame. "Put the weapon down before you lose more than your badge tonight." The officer's gun trembled in his hand. Slowly he holstered it, his lips pressed in a thin, guilty line. Nia's father stepped out of the SUV. Governor Caldwell's face, usually calm and measured even under political storms, now carried the fury of a father whose daughter had just stared down death. "Nia," he said softly, rushing to her side. He cupped her face, scanning for injuries. "Are you all right?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Daddy, he had the gun pointed at me the whole time. He said I looked suspicious. He didn't believe me." The governor turned, his voice steel. "Officer, what's your name?" The man swallowed. "Oh, Officer Bradley, sir." "Well, Officer Bradley," Governor Caldwell's voice cut like ice, "you just pointed a loaded weapon at an unarmed woman, harassed her, searched her without cause, and nearly escalated into bloodshed, all because of the color of her skin." I made a mistake," Bradley muttered, avoiding his gaze. "No, you showed your character," Caldwell snapped. Other patrol cars arrived, lights piercing the night. Word had spread quickly, an officer detaining the governor's daughter. Reporters wouldn't be far behind. Nia clung to her father's arm, the weight of the night pressing down. She should have been safe. But in that moment, she realized something chilling. If she hadn't been his daughter, she might not have survived at all. As the scene unfolded, Bradley's supervisor arrived, confusion etched on his face. What in God's name happened here? Governor Caldwell's glare didn't waver. "Your officer threatened my daughter's life without provocation. I expect a full report, an investigation, and accountability. Do you understand me?" The supervisor stiffened. "Yes, sir," immediately. But Nia knew how these stories usually went. Reports buried, investigations dragged out, officers quietly reassigned. Not this time, she thought. Her father caught her eye, reading the fire in her expression. Together they silently vowed this wouldn't end in the shadows. This was only the beginning. The story broke before sunrise. By 6:00 a.m., every major news outlet carried the headline. Governor's daughter held at gunpoint by Atlanta cop. Clips of the flashing police lights, blurry cell phone footage from a bystander, and statements from the governor's office looped endlessly across networks. Social media exploded, hashtags trending worldwide. Nia Caldwell, justice for Nia, cop accountability. Some called for the officer's immediate arrest. Others tried to downplay it, insisting protocol justified his actions, but nothing could erase the image. A young black woman, terrified, with a gun leveled at her chest, and that woman being the governor's daughter. At the governor's mansion, Nia sat curled on the living room sofa, knees tucked to her chest. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the officer's sneer, heard the click of his weapon, felt the cold hood of her car under her cheek. Her mother, Angela Caldwell, placed a comforting hand on her back. "Baby, breathe, you're safe now." But Nia shook her head. "I keep thinking, what if that other car hadn't pulled up? What if Dad's security hadn't been there?" I'd. Her voice cracked into silence. Her father knelt before her, his eyes fierce yet gentle. "You'd still be you, strong, alive, refusing to be silenced. Don't let him take that from you, Nia." She swallowed hard. But how many people don't get to walk away? How many names don't we even hear? The governor's jaw tightened. Too many, and that's why this can't be swept aside. Meanwhile, Officer Bradley sat in a cramped precinct office, head in his hands. His supervisor's words still rang in his ears. "Do you realize what you've done? You pulled a gun on the governor's daughter, the governor's daughter." Bradley had tried to defend himself. She fit the profile. "There was no profile," the supervisor roared. "You acted on bias, and now the whole nation knows it." Bradley's stomach churned. He'd always prided himself on being tough on crime, patrolling with a hard edge. But deep down, he knew the truth. He didn't see a citizen that night. He saw a threat because of her skin. And now it might cost him everything. By afternoon, the governor held a press conference. Cameras flashed as he took the podium, Nia by his side. "My daughter could have died last night," Malcolm Caldwell began, his voice steady but heavy with restrained rage. "Not because she broke the law, not because she posed a threat, but because an officer saw her skin color before her humanity." The crowd murmured, reporters scribbled furiously. "This is not just about my family, this is about every family that has buried a loved one because of unjustified police violence. Enough is enough." Applause erupted, mixed with shouts of support, but Nia's stomach knotted. As empowering as her father's words were, she knew backlash would come. Sure enough, within hours, Bradley's union issued a statement. "Officer Bradley acted according to training and perceived threat. He regrets the unfortunate misunderstanding but maintains he had reason to suspect potential criminal activity." Nia read the statement aloud at the dinner table, her voice dripping with disbelief. "Misunderstanding? He had a loaded gun pointed at me." Her mother's eyes narrowed. "They'll twist it every way they can, they always do." Governor Caldwell sighed. "This isn't just about one bad officer, it's a system that protects him even when he's wrong, but they chose the wrong family to intimidate." Days turned into a whirlwind. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse chanting for justice. Civil rights groups rallied behind Nia, calling her a symbol of resistance. But with visibility came venom. Hate mail poured in. Commentators on certain networks painted Nia as privileged, accusing her of exploiting her father's position. One evening, as she scrolled through her phone, Nia froze at a message. "If you weren't the governor's daughter, no one would care. Stay in your lane." Her chest tightened. For the first time, she wondered if speaking out made her a target. Her father found her staring blankly at the screen. "Nia," he said softly, "I know this is heavy. If you need to step back, we'll understand." But Nia shook her head. Her fear was real, but so was her resolve. "No, Daddy, this isn't just about me. I won't be quiet." Meanwhile, Bradley's world unraveled. He was suspended without pay. Neighbors avoided him. His wife, weary from the media camped outside their home, begged him to apologize publicly. But pride burned in his chest. "If I back down, I'm admitting I'm a racist," he snapped. His wife's eyes filled with tears. "You pointed a gun at an innocent woman, Tom. What else would you call it?" Bradley turned away, shame gnawing at him. For the first time, he realized no excuse could erase the image of her trembling hands in the air. The turning point came 2 weeks later in court. The state attorney had fast-tracked the case under intense public pressure. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Bradley faced charges of unlawful assault, abuse of power, and racial profiling. Reporters filled every seat, activists lined the hallways, the world was watching. Nia sat with her parents, palms clammy, heart pounding. This was no longer just a personal trauma, it was a fight for justice. The prosecution laid out the case. No credible description of a suspect. No probable cause for the stop. Unlawful search of her belongings. Excessive force in drawing his weapon. And then, the damning moment, the bystander video played on screen. The jury watched as Bradley barked orders, gun raised, his words dripping with disdain. "You people always got a story." Gasps echoed through the room. Nia closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. She hadn't wanted to relive that moment, but now she saw the power of truth laid bare. Bradley's defense attorney fought back. She resisted instructions. The officer acted under perceived threat. But the prosecutor pounced. Resisted, she complied at every step. The only threat present was the officer's weapon. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. When Bradley finally took the stand, his hands trembled. I thought she might be dangerous," he stammered. "Dangerous?" the prosecutor pressed. "A young woman, unarmed in her work clothes, standing beside her own vehicle." Bradley's voice faltered. She looked suspicious. And with that, the room fell into heavy silence. Everyone knew what he meant and what he didn't want to admit. After the hearing adjourned, Nia stepped outside into a sea of cameras. Reporters shouted questions, microphones thrust toward her. How do you feel, Miss Caldwell? Do you forgive the officer? What does justice look like for you? She took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the storm around her. Justice is not just about me, it's about changing a system where someone like me could have been buried instead of standing here. I don't want pity, I want change. Her words rippled through the crowd, carried live across millions of screens. For the first time since that night, Nia felt the weight shift from her shoulders to a movement larger than herself. But behind closed doors, Bradley stewed. His lawyer warned him the evidence is damning, a plea deal may save you from prison. But Bradley clenched his fists. I won't admit guilt, I was doing my job. His stubbornness shocked even his own family. His wife whispered late that night, Tom, maybe prison is what you need because you still don't get it. As the trial neared its climax, the governor's mansion braced for the verdict. Angela held Nia close, whispering prayers. Malcolm prepared for political fallout, knowing critics would accuse him of exploiting the case. But Nia only thought of one thing, accountability. She had faced death and she had survived. Now she wanted her survival to mean something. And soon the gavel would fall. As the trial neared its climax, the governor's mansion braced for the verdict. Angela held Nia close, whispering prayers. Malcolm prepared for political fallout, knowing critics would accuse him of exploiting the case. But Nia only thought of one thing, accountability. She had faced death and she had survived. Now she wanted her survival to mean something. And soon the gavel would fall. The courtroom was packed. Cameras flashed like lightning, every lens aimed at the tense scene unfolding inside. The judge, a stern black woman with salt and pepper hair, banged her gavel for silence. All rise, the bailiff commanded. Everyone stood. Nia clutched her father's hand, heart hammering against her ribs. This was it. The verdict that would decide if her near death would mean justice or just another headline. The jury filed back into the box, their faces grave. The foreman stood, holding the paper that carried the weight of truth. On the charge of unlawful assault with a deadly weapon, we find the defendant, Officer Thomas Bradley, guilty. The word sliced through the air like thunder. Gasps, murmurs, and even applause rippled through the gallery. Nia's knees buckled, tears streaming freely as she clung to her mother. The foreman continued. On the charge of abuse of authority, guilty. On the charge of racial profiling, guilty. Bradley's face crumpled, his lawyer slumped in defeat. The weight of his actions, once shielded by a badge, now bore down on him with crushing force. The judge's voice cut sharp. Officer Bradley, you disgraced the oath you swore. You turned a symbol of protection into one of terror. The court hereby sentences you to demotion, permanent removal of your badge, and 5 years in state prison. A hush fell, the gavel struck. Justice had spoken. Nia exhaled, a weight lifting she hadn't realized she'd carried so heavily. She looked at her father, who nodded, his eyes moist but steady. You did it, baby girl, you stood strong. But Nia shook her head softly. No, Daddy, we did it. Everyone who refused to stay silent, this is bigger than me. Outside, the crowd erupted. Protesters cheered. Supporters hugged strangers. Reporters scrambled to broadcast the historic ruling. Justice at last, someone shouted. But amidst the celebration, Nia remained sober. This victory was important, but it was just one step in a much longer journey. Meanwhile, Bradley was led away in handcuffs, his shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow. The badge he once polished with pride was stripped from him in front of the nation. Inside his mind, a war raged, pride, shame, fear, all colliding. For the first time, he couldn't hide behind excuses. He had destroyed his career, his family, his freedom with a single moment of prejudice. And for the first time, he felt what accountability tasted like. In the weeks that followed, the story reverberated across Georgia and beyond. Police departments launched mandatory racial bias training. Lawmakers pushed bills aimed at stricter oversight of law enforcement. Civil rights groups declared it a turning point. But most powerful of all were the personal stories flooding Nia's inbox. Letters from mothers, fathers, students, even police officers who admitted, "Your courage gave us hope." One evening, as the family gathered on the governor's mansion porch, Nia looked out at the Atlanta skyline. Her younger brother Caleb nudged her. "You realize you're kind of a hero now, right?" She chuckled softly, "I don't feel like one." Her father smiled, "Heroes rarely do, they just stand when it matters most." Yet Nia knew the true lesson wasn't about being a hero. It was about survival, truth, and refusing to be silenced. She thought back to that terrifying night, the command, "Show me your ID," and the fear that nearly stole her breath. And she realized something. That moment, as horrifying as it was, had given her a voice she never knew she had. A voice that could demand change. Weeks later, Nia stood before a packed auditorium at a university forum on justice reform. She told her story not as the governor's daughter, not as a victim, but as a survivor determined to make meaning out of trauma. Her words flowed with power. "I survived because of who my father is, but countless others don't. We can't rest until every daughter, every son, every life is treated with equal value. Justice cannot be selective, it must be universal." The audience rose in thunderous applause. Meanwhile, Bradley sat in a stark prison cell, his future forever altered. Stripped of the uniform that once gave him power, he faced his own reflection and the demons of his choices. Perhaps in those long, lonely nights he'd finally understand what his arrogance had blinded him to, that a badge does not place one above humanity. For Nia, life slowly returned to a new normal. But she was not the same woman who once drove home carefree on that humid Thursday night. She was stronger, wiser, more resolute. Because from the ashes of fear she had forged purpose. And so, the story of a cop pulling a gun on the governor's daughter became more than a headline. It became a lesson carved into history. That justice delayed is pain multiplied. That silence feeds injustice. And that courage, even in trembling hands, can light the way to change. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Your voice matters, and together we can keep spreading stories that inspire change.